This is Off Track.
So, James.
Hello and welcome.
I forgot what we said. Are we doing the Tuesday episode right now?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Hi, everyone. So, happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday.
Hope your week is going well. I hope everyone recovered from their weekend because I know that everyone stayed up on NBC watching, well, not James, pound around for the 24 Hours Daytona, but like the rest of the people. So let's get straight into it, James. Let's talk about your Daytona experience.
Well, let's talk about my Daytona experience. So, yes, I mean, you guys have heard all the preamble, right? You know about the team switching manufacturers and the crazy hustle to get everything ready and whatever.
Yep.
And then we talked after the roar, and everything went pretty well after the roar, so that was good. Yep. And then, so we got to race week.
We talked about torque sensors and fake fuel and all that.
Yep, all that jazz. So then you get to race week, and it's like, you know what it's like, man. They've got, 5 practice sessions, and it still feels like no time. Like when you're splitting it with
you're
5
saving
or 4
tires
guys,
and stuff. And
you're saving tires. And so, like, I don't want to say, no, I do say, I felt like slightly underprepared going into the race, like personally. Because here's the thing, right?
Doesn't everyone though?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
I've never once done that race, and especially in our shoes, being the peasant guys,
the bonus
that just
guy,
pound around in the night. We don't get any sort of like priority of anything because we shouldn't. So I haven't done that event ever and felt like I had any concept of what was going on or what to expect until I was in the car under green flag conditions.
Yes, and that's ultimately the same story. But like one of the challenges, right, is You learn by looking at data, really. Like that's in this scenario, I've got 3 factory drivers as teammates. So a lot of good information to go off of. And like, I'm very capable of driving around and then looking at data, seeing the difference and be like, oh, okay. And then applying that. The problem was like, you're looking at the data. It's like really only it's in IndyCar sometimes you can get like an iPad in the cockpit in between runs and you can look at it and then just immediately go right back out and try to apply, right? Here, you're never in the car for back-to-back runs. Like I never would pit and not get out of the car. So you're only looking at it in between sessions. But because you're looking after things like tires and because in between session the track changes and when there's 61 cars pounding around, things change a lot. And so sometimes by the time, and we had this last year with the McLaren, man, like by the time we had looked at the data from one session, we got to the next session, we did that, and that was now wrong for this session, right? So like, it's just such a mind because you're trying to like, and then you're like, do I just not know how to do this anymore? Like, am I there now? Because like, it doesn't make sense what's happening. And so there was a little bit of that going into the race. And it's, like, again, the team, we don't have maybe as many people as some others. And even just like getting the chance to look at data or look at video, you're sometimes cutting into like the engineer or assistant engineer or somebody's, task list. Luckily I found out at one point that like Lamborghini has their own room for engineers, like in one of the permanent buildings at the end of the paddock. And I could like go there and talk to those guys. So like the factory dudes obviously know about that. I didn't really know about that. Not on them. Just, I wasn't aware. And I probably didn't ask enough questions about how it all worked. Anyway, so going into the race, I didn't feel like I better than I had after practice just because, you're never like, I don't think I had a new set of tires all through practice. So you're just like, you're feeling a little like off. And so I get in the race and my first stint in the race, so the race starts great. So Andrea starts, qualified 5th and, great effort. The Mustangs clearly were around because they blitzed the field by a half a second. So like, and so much of it's in a straight line. Like it's through all that torque sensor stuff and through all the BOP or whatever, like teams still find ways around it because like Fords were nowhere. They were just so average throughout practice. And then they 1-2'd in qualifying by like 4/10 over the rest of the field.
Nice.
So, gamesmanship and tomfoolery and skullduggery still happening. So that was a bit frustrating. Yeah.
That's new.
Tim knows.
That's a term that doesn't get used enough.
I agree.
I feel like skullduggery needs to make a comeback.
I agree.
It's the first time I've ever heard it.
There you go. Learned something today.
Okay.
Whatever. But we were feeling pretty good for the race. So we started fifth. Great start. I think he got up to third. And by the end of his stint, he was running first. So that was very good. End of the first stint. He reported a bit of a vibration, which was a bit of a concern. So we pitted him like a lap or two early. And when we came in, the left side wheels decided they did not want to remove themselves from the car.
So the vibration was those things were connected.
A brand new set of rims. And I guess there's like a little bit of bedding sometimes that happens with these things. So they ended up loosening almost a little bit. And so the vibration was the wheel just shaking a little bit. But then what that does is that jams it up against the lock and they couldn't get the wheel nut off, essentially. And so it led to a sort of panicked, frantic, green flag stop, hammers, chisels, all sorts of wild stuff to get these wheels off.
Yep.
Guys got it done. Amazingly, we did not lose a lap, but now we were DFL. And
but like in hour two.
In like the end of hour one, yes. So like it was annoying, but it was not. I was
also
like
irrelevant.
Correct. I said to Jordan right there, I was like, if this is going to happen, I want it to happen in hour 2, not 22, right? Like this is, we can come back. This is fine. So he did his other stint. Marco got in. He did 2 great stints, just picking guys off. I think we got ourselves back up to like 5th or 6th. I jumped in for my first stint. By this point, it's nighttime. And my first stint, Tim, was the exact opposite of that. So, I haven't driven the car in 2 days and I'm still learning and whatever. But I remember so clearly last year, like how much I figured out in the race because you're just nonstop running for 2 hours at a time, uninterrupted, working on stuff, trying this, whatever. So the first stint, they decided it was under caution. And they decided this would be a good time to start saving tires. So we only did right side tires. You're not allowed to double stint right sides in our class. And so you can double stint left sides. And you do that because they don't give you enough tires to put on a brand new set for every stint. And you want to save all the new sets. You want to make sure for the last 4 or 5 hours, you have only new sets. So you do some double stinting of the left side tires in the middle of the night. And of course you need to do 2 of those just to get 1 full set's worth of tires. Anyway, so my first laps in the car were at night and on a restart where I had half hot tires, half cold tires, and it was a complete unmitigated disaster. Like I restarted, I think 8th, I think like something in the cycle, we ended up 8th on the restart, and I fell back to like 12th. I think there was only 13 cars in our class, but because they do the class split between the GTD Pros and the GTDs, so it's all the same car, right? But kind of scored as different classes. So I was 8th in my class, but then I had 30 GTDs behind me. And half of those, of those driver lineups, if there's 4 drivers, like 2 of them are pros. And
3.
So, 3 could be pros. And so I just got swamped, man. It was so embarrassing. It was such a bad stint. And I was just like furious. And the car was so unbalanced. And I'm like, oh my God, I should retire. This is terrible. I hate everything. I don't know what I'm doing. Why am I doing this? I say this every year. This race sucks. I hate I'm never coming back. And I always come back. And it was just driving around saving my life. And I was half expecting the call when they called me into pit. I was half it because like you're supposed to do a double.
Just be like, get
half
out.
Expecting to be like, all right, man, we're gonna do a driver change on this one. And I'm like, that's it. That's gonna be my last stint in a race car ever. It's the last thing I ever do. Like it was so bad. It was so bad. So then we pit. I get 4 new tires. So in my head, I'm like, so it's the tires. I got everyone else had new tires. I had half you. I was making up all these like excuses, but I was like, I just gonna need new tires and I'll be good. Get new tires, and then like 10 minutes into the stint, there was a yellow. Perfect. So the field all closed back up, and now I was class split. I was at the back of our class. So I was 12th or 13th. And then green flag, fired off, and drove up to, I think, 3rd before our stint was done. And went like 2 laps longer than we were planning, passing cars, like just had a phenomenal...
Yeah, that part I was saying you kicked ass.
Yeah. Like, that moment when it just clicks, you're like, oh, that's what it needs, right? Like all the little bit of lap time that you lose in turn 1 and turn 3 and turn 5 and turn 6 to the other guys, you drive around enough and you just get that feeling, and that feeling just clicked. I'm like, okay, now we're in the ballpark. And had a great stint, was like super stoked, handed the car off. And then unfortunately, Jordan on a restart got caught up in a bit of a cluster. Like, I think Delatraz looped it on his own and then came back on track, and a couple P2s got into each other, and there was just chaos in front. And I think Jordan was checking his mirror, looked up, and the BMW in front of him through a flat out section of racetrack had jumped on the brakes and just had nowhere to go. So unfortunately, it was a big enough hit that it was terminal.
So 2 questions. I can ask this because I'm not his teammate. Was that his excuse, or was that really what happened? And then B, it didn't look like that large of a hit. Why? I mean, you see so many times, cars come back in pieces, go back to the garage, get fixed. I mean, a freaking GTP car had to do a whole gearbox change and went back out. So why were you out?
So question 1, yes. Not his excuse. Very, very plausible. He said that he went a little bit wide. You know what this is like, right? He went a little bit wide in turn 1, right? And so as he was coming off the corner, he looked in his mirror because
the crash is already happening in front of him.
Yeah, I don't know if that information made it to him.
Oh, right, because you're right. Your eyes can sometimes just delete things from your brain.
What?
Where the cars were crashed, right?
We're just hang on. We're just letting that go. We're just letting whatever that.
No,
we're not acknowledging it. He's taking the piss.
Never not say never, never.
Don't say
I
never.
don't believe that's a thing,
racing.
but that information didn't get to him when the crash is in front of him. I don't know.
Oh, he's being sarcastic.
Well, no, but he's around the corner, right? The class split.
I've watched it. Okay,
right. But so he comes out of one.
7 cars in 2 pieces, but yeah.
Yes, but
right.
He's far enough back that the movement had sort of stopped. And as he came out of the corner, he checked his mirror because he did go a bit wide, and so he was making sure no one was trying to go side by side with him through the S's. And then by the time he looked up, again, it's a flat out section of racetracks. You're not expecting somebody to be on the brakes. And so that closing rate just comes so fast. So I get it. He put his hand up. He's like, look, at the end of the day, whether I got the right information from the spotter or whatever, he's like, I'm behind the wheel. And he took the responsibility. And then the reason we couldn't continue, because dude, is one of those things. If you just look at the bodywork, it looks like he just scuffed it. The dive plane was still on the right front corner. But because he had lock in it, it grabbed the beamer and it folded the right front corner under basically. And it pulled stuff out of the front clip of the car. So a change would have been an entire front end, and it just wasn't worth it. So unfortunately, that was why we were out.
But fortunate, you always, all of us, every single driver in that field always says at Daytona, if you're going to have an issue, make it big enough that you don't go out 50 laps.
1,000%. 1,000%. When it
I've
first
done
happened,
that so many times.
We were all frustrated and whatever. But in my head, I was just because the Marco and Andre were both oh, we're definitely done. I could tell we're definitely done. He's out of the car. We're definitely done. I'm I don't know, man. I've pulled myself out a lot of times here and had to go back out 400 laps down, just poodling around like an idiot. So ultimately it was the right call. So bummer, but in the rest of the race, another banger 24, man. We've seen this happen so many times. After 24 hours of racing, you come down to that last hour and there's some great stuff. We're going to come back to the issue I want to talk about, but Nazar was driving the winning Penske Porsche. Did a great final stint, had to pass his teammate Matt Campbell and kind of controlled it from there. Blomqvist, amazing final run. That guy's so good in a prototype. We've talked about that a lot on the show. Also passed Campbell to get into second, was trying to chase down Nazar, but couldn't quite get it done. But great for the guys from Shank and HRC, a couple IndyCar drivers on that car with Dixon and Rosenquist. And then in LMP2, I don't even remember who won that one, if I'm honest.
Bourdais.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Tower Motorsports. Yeah.
Dude, the number 99 dominated that race, and they had some battery issue like in the last hour. It was
So Christian Rasmussen was driving that car. They were the class of the field the whole race. The 88, which I don't remember who was in that car, but that was really their only competition. They had an engine failure with like 3 hours to go, something like that.
Very rare because it's a heartbreaking
kind of for those guys. Yeah. But what that meant is it was basically just gifted to the 99, not gifted, but like they were the best car by a mile. Yeah. And Christian was out there. He was going to be the finishing driver again, which you gotta appreciate considering he was sharing that car with Dane Cameron, who is the defending champion of GTP and IMSA and has had a huge amount of success in sports cars for the past decade plus. Christian got the nod to finish. Was driving around like 10 laps into his stint, got a low battery alarm. And so when they came in for their scheduled pit stop, they had a look and the alternator belt had shredded itself, which meant that they were pretty much done without fixing that. You have to have battery, obviously in the car. So
for what?
Oh, stuff and things. So that's just a sad, unlucky story because it wasn't, installation error. It wasn't drivers banging wheels. It wasn't off-track excursions. It wasn't anything like that. It was just a belt that failed, and it's
probably like a $12 belt.
Yeah, it's like 21 of 24 hours.
Michael's slowing down, right? It's like a small, like the famous in Michael Andretti slowing down. Or whatever.
Oh yeah,
it's just such a minor piece of the car that ruins. Otherwise, great race.
Think back to like Toyota at Le Mans a couple of years ago. Last lap, they had an electrical gremlin. Car goes into like limp mode and couldn't, lost the race. Yeah. Endurance racing can be so tragic like that. But stoked for Sebastian and Tower Motorsports. Great job there. GTD Pro went to a Mustang. So their trickery and skullduggery and shenanigans paid off. But honestly, it was a great final stint. Like there was a really good race happening. Like they earned it in that last stint. Whatever else. I mean, like it was good battles with Corvette, with the Trackhouse car that McLaughlin and SVG and Connor Zilich and Ben Keating were in. We're kind of in the mix there.
I wouldn't say there was good battles, but there was battles of the BMWs. And then GTD, our guy, Marvin.
Marvin got a watch, man. So cool.
It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Canadian team, Ori Fadani.
It was amazing to see, like, obviously we got to see firsthand, like, his capability.
Yeah.
And a lot of that always in my mind was like, oh, he's the McLaren factory guy. Like, he's developed these things. And, yeah, of course, he's got to drive
a million miles in it.
Yeah. He jumps into a Corvette for the first time and is the benchmark, the fastest guy. And it's like, oh, okay, he's just pretty good. So.
Dude, he did a monumental triple in like the last 5 hours that got them up into the lead and had a nice lead. And his drive time got too high. He couldn't finish. So they put Matt Bellin, who did a great job because he started up front, fell back a couple spots, and then like he muscled his way back into the lead and held it. So huge for those guys. Really, really happy for Marvin, who like all the other drivers on the team have like shaved heads. And I guess he made a bet that if he won, he'd also shave his head. So I got news for you. Marvin's now bald.
That's like the opposite of a Marvin Kirchhofer thing to do.
It's like the most un-Marvin thing ever.
Yes. Yeah.
Like the other most
He's a very put together human being.
He is. And he's got a gorgeous, glowing, golden, flowing locks.
Well,
it's had. They're on the floor of a trailer somewhere on their way back to Toronto. But yes, the one thing I just want to touch on is the whole BMW Corvette thing, because it was such a crock. And I'm mad that BMW were even allowed to continue participating in that race. But I get a little dramatic with these things. So explanation, BMW's leading. No, Corvette's leading. BMW's in second and GTD Pro. The sister BMW had been damaged earlier in the same wreck that we were involved in and was 47 laps down or something. Okay. We're coming into the last 2 hours of the race. It's crunch time. This car is on track, 47 laps down. The leaders are catching it. Now, I think everybody expected a little bit of gamesmanship here in terms of that BMW not just letting the Corvette go, because
Nor
he had
should
about
it.
a 2.5, 3 second lead over the other BMW. And fine, that's part of racing. I get it. Here's the problem. He did it so dramatically that he actually got a blocking penalty for it. Like, that alone is too far. And I'm going to call him out. It's Augusto Farfus was driving the car for BMW. Tommy Milner was in the Corvette. And to go so far that you're blocking so aggressively to a car that you are 47 laps down to and is the class leader, immediately that's such a black mark on a driver's record. And like, that is such a no-no. And so he gets a drive-through penalty. At this point, the teammate is caught right up. He's right on the bumper of the Corvette. Connor DeFilippi's driving that car. And then they get to turn 3, the lap that the penalty gets called. So he's coming in that lap for a penalty. He just brake checks Tommy in the middle of the corner. Connor tries to pass him around the outside. Because he brake checks him, Tommy runs into the back of the BMW, swerves to get around him, ends up making contact with the other BMW that's now trying to pass him around the outside, and essentially destroys his race. Body damage. They got black flagged for it, and Corvette was basically out of the running after that. I get there's team orders. I get slowing him. I get not making it easy for him. But like, that level of what he did, and Tommy Milner's a better man than I am, because he actually put out a post on Twitter saying, hey, look, I've raced against Augusto for 15 years. We've always been clean, always been tight. I'm sure he was just following orders. And I'm sure all of that is true. And I don't think this one thing has to define this guy's career. He's been around a long time. He's done a lot of good things. But what he did there was so atrocious. Like, it's hard to respect him moving forward, because like, to interrupt 22 hours into a 24-hour race with everything that people do to put themselves in a position to win there. And he just intentionally like ruined it for an entire group of people that he doesn't even know. Maybe he's never met. I don't know. It makes me so angry that he did that, and that team got robbed of an opportunity to go after a win. Orders, fine. But, so the rest of, so like, at the end of the day, the wheel is in your hands. And what he did was, I guarantee you the team didn't ask him to do that, right? He took it that far of his own accord. Yeah. And if I was IMSA, I would have benched both BMWs, because if there was any kind of team order and your employee took it too far, sorry, it's a team sport. And the Corvette then went back out and took out the car that was running in a podium position, which I have no problem with. I hate that. I hate when it happens in NASCAR.
Sounds like iRacing.
Dude, it's 100% like that. And it doesn't happen in IndyCar because that's just not we don't have those kind of cars. Like, we don't have that option. But I hate when it happens in NASCAR. I hate when it happens in sports cars. But I was fully endorsing Corvette to take out BMW after that happened. It's infuriating.
All right, last question, because I know we got to record another episode right after this.
What's your opinion?
Will you be back next year?
Yeah, obviously. Of course I want to go back. This has been Off Track with Hinch and Rossi. Off Track is part of the SiriusXM Sports Podcast Network. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more, please give a 5-star rating and leave a review. Subscribe today wherever you stream your podcasts. We are at Ask Off Track on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to follow us on Twitter, we're at Hinchtown and at Alexander Rossi. If you want to follow Tim, though we have no idea why you would, he's at the Tim Durham on Twitter. Find us on YouTube and subscribe to our channel for exclusive video content. Off Track is produced by Tim Durham, and by that we mean Tim.